Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution. Hello and welcome to Then a Moment, the podcast where two lifelong storytellers talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, audiobook narrator, author, actor, singer, etc.
And I am Colin Funk, a childhood development expert and teaching artist.
And today we're going to be talking about, drumroll, Book of Mormon.
But first.
First we have our moments of the week.
Yes.
I'll go first this time.
Go for it.
So, not to toot my own horn, but I wrote a story for some competition. I've been submitting to a bunch of short story competitions. I'm going to start taking writing courses and things to kind of level up my game because I'm hoping to get into the real honest to goodness publishing. And I reread the short story I just submitted to the NYC Midnight competition. It's a short story competition in rounds, etc. Long story short, I read this story and it was pretty good. But there is a moment in it.
Give me the moment, yes. I did.
The moment,
I proofread it.
He did proofread it, so he knows what I'm talking about. But there's a moment where this character who kind of is cursed to do this morning routine every single day, has to get on the same train in the ssame car, on the same seat, and his kind of crush is sitting in that seat. Ooh. And out of nowhere he is all mixed up in his mind and tells his crush that he's got good teeth.
Oh my God.
Which incidentally is pretty much the first thing that I said to Colin, who happens to be my husband. We are now married. I don't know how that happened.
Oh my God.
Because the first line was, you have good teeth. But I used the line from my life.
He did.
And that wasn't the moment. The moment that I loved was as soon as something happens that he doesn't get his routine done, like extraordinary things happen. Mm-hmm. And in this case, just a bunch of enormous teeth get on the train and like stack themselves into like a smile at one end of the train car. And I don't know, I just think that's a funny image. And I forgot that that's how I put it in there.
Yeah.
And reading it again, I just was struck by that moment.
Yeah, it's nice that you can forget since you've written it and get to enjoy it yourself.
It's pretty easy for me. My attention is elsewhere.
Yeah, you just get to the end and it's all fresh.
It's all gone.
It's just
not enough room in my brain. So once I'm done with it, it's gone.
It's flowing free.
That's right. That's what we'll say.
Sure.
What was your moment?
You know what? I'm going to have to go with a classic. Go with some Will and Grace, I think. One of my favorite television series of all time. And it
holds up.
It's great. It's still amazing. The comedy makes me laugh still. I think it's hilarious.
Every single time, for sure.
The same jokes.
And
I'll know they're coming, and they're still so funny. The cast is so stupid. They're
extraordinary.
So funny.
It's like really kind of a unicorn cast.
It is often a show that I have in the background or put on before I go to bed. Yeah. Things like that. So it's often playing. But this week, I don't know, one of the episodes, the moment that tickled me, they're so stupid and they're not even, it's like clever by being so obvious and so broad. They made a joke. They were like, they had big news. Will and Grace are going to have a baby together. And they're like, but let's not tell Jack and Karen yet. And of course they both have told.
They've both told each of them. So Jack and Karen know.
They each know. And of course they're like, Jack and Karen just like talk to each other about everything anyway.
Sure.
But, as they were sitting down to dinner or whatever, Jack and Karen just lift a glass and say, congrats on, here's to Will and Grace's baby. And both Will and Grace look at each other and are like, what, you told?
You told.
And Will was like, Jack doesn't count, he doesn't listen. And Grace goes, well, Karen doesn't count, she's always plastered or wasted, whatever. Drunk, she's always drunk. And in response, Karen starts to say something, and it's like, oh, it's not a big deal. Wait, where are we? And because she's very drunk.
Yep, she's very drunk.
And then after a second, Jack just goes, wait, what? And it's just like so stupid. These jokes are like, Jack's not listening. Karen's drunk. It's just like
it's so obvious.
Yeah.
And it still lands.
It's so, they just like lean on the archetypes.
Yeah.
And they don't even hide it. It's just stupid. And it really made me laugh.
Yeah. They really were masters at the craft of timing, which is so important in comedy, but in any storytelling, really. It's like the pacing of even the minutia of how the lines come out. It's just funny every time, and you can know it's coming, and it's still funny.
So funny.
It's just triggers something in our brains.
Magic.
All right.
Cool.
Shall we get to it?
Let's get to it.
All right. The Book of Mormon. The cast was the touring cast.
Touring cast in
was
Chicago.
In Chicago, and so we went to go see it. It's your turn to do a synopsis.
Okay. So the Book of Mormon. It is a musical by the creators of South Park, and they literally took the story of the Book of Mormon, which, if you don't know, is the Bible of Mormon people, essentially.
It's like a third testament.
Yes, as they put it. But it is scripture. It is the holy book for Mormon people. And it kind of talks about how Mormonism came to be. And so they do a little history of that, but the story follows two Mormon missionary boys that they get assigned to their mission, and they get assigned to the place in the world that they go to help spread Mormonism, and they get assigned to Uganda, even though the one guy in particular really wants to go to Orlando.
Yes,
and he's like the star player, and they go to Uganda, and it is not happy and fun and shiny just like the Mormons are. So they have to figure out how to get the Ugandan people on board with Mormonism, even though their life is terrible. And the Mormon boys don't have any experience with that. And so it's about them figuring that out and winning over the Ugandan people and losing faith and gaining faith, and it's just mostly a silly, fun, good time.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Great. What did you know about the show going in?
Well,
did you watch any South Park?
It was on when I was younger. Not very much. Like, that was one of the shows that my mom would not let us watch. So we didn't watch it very often. I don't even think we had. It was Comedy Central, right? Yeah. We didn't even have Comedy Central, I don't think. So it was only a show that I would watch here or there a couple times in college. It was like on in the background sometimes when I was hanging out with people. But I haven't seen a lot of South Park.
Yeah. It's one that I haven't really seen much of either.
I think maybe I've seen a season or two spread out.
And the movie. I saw the movie. That was a big deal.
I didn't even see the movie.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. That was like, people freaked out because of the movie.
Yeah. The movie was a big deal. I mean, and their whole thing, which I knew about, like, I know, like, the style of South Park is very irreverent and it is like shocking, but it like has very specific, it like takes things that are, controversial and just like pokes at them.
Yeah, nothing is sacred.
Yes. And
equally across the board.
If you really watch it, I mean, some people, I know my mom felt like things were like very pointed. I think she thought it was, liberal and very, one point of view.
Yeah, but it really kind of isn't in the end.
I think they're pretty
even about who they're making fun of.
Yeah.
It's just about everybody.
They're pretty neutral in their points of view. It feels like, or they try their very hardest to come from that place and to explore the kind of extremes of all sides of these complex and controversial issues, but in a way that's just like taking the piss. They're just like, they don't give a shit.
Right. And we've seen the show before. Because the Book of Mormon had a sit-down production here in Chicago 10 years ago, maybe, starring Ben Platt and I don't remember the other guy.
Who was the other guy?
He was in Nick Rouleau. He's in the Uncoupling. he's like the rival real estate agent that he thinks maybe is having an affair with his husband. No,
I'm
nothing.
No,
all right. Well, anyway,
I don't know what that is.
I just remember seeing him in a bunch of like YouTube videos because we were in college at the same time, and that's like what people did in musical theater school. We would watch other musical theater schools. Senior.
You're dating yourself.
Yeah, I am. I'm dating myself. That's what YouTube was for back then.
Yeah, we just watched like every other college student sing the same like 4 new musical theater songs.
Yep.
Horrible. Terrible. Not a great time for musical theater.
No. Oh man, not for new musical theater.
No.
But then Book of Mormon comes out. It has a sit-down company, and it was one of the shows that would have they'd have the lottery, and most of them do here in Chicago. They'll you can submit to a lottery just online, and you'll get the 2 or 4 tickets.
Right.
And people kept winning in my friend circle, so I just saw it like 5 times.
You've seen a lot.
I saw it so many times in that first time it was here. So it was interesting going back and seeing it 10 years later.
Yeah.
I
mean, that was very interesting because I also saw that production. Before I knew you, before we had synced up
our cycles.
Yes.
We also know that our producer here, Colton, he saw this production as well, and apparently was his first musical. Is that right?
Yeah, it was my first professional production, I'd say.
Oh my goodness gracious.
That's exciting.
That's very exciting.
I mean, as people who...
I've been going since I was like 6. Yeah. So that's pretty wild to me. But before we get into it, I want to know what you thought of it.
I thought it was really good. I didn't really know what to expect going in. My girlfriend just wanted to see it because it was coming to town, and she saw a few musicals before, just like the Mean Girls and like Hamilton. Those were like the 2. So she saw this. She said, "Oh, all my friends love this. Like, we need to see it." And going in, I didn't know what to expect, but I just enjoyed it the entire time. I kind of treated it like a giant episode of South Park in a way.
Yeah, kind of.
And I like South Park, and the humor just kind of did it for me. Like I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, it meshes. Interesting. As we go on, I might have more questions for you because I might have some. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this conversation rolls out. So, right off the bat, first impressions.
Yes.
It was, I'm like showing my age. I was like scandalized this time, which is so weird because I saw it so many times and I knew what was coming.
Yeah.
And I was like shocked seeing it again,
which is crazy. Again,
which is
it's
so
South Park
weird.
People,
right?
Like, you should have been.
I was. And I had seen it, and I'm like prepared, and I'm like, it happens. I was like, oh my god, I forgot how. Raunchy. How like. Oh, it really is just so much swearing, and it's so graphic, and
again, the timing. If we're talking about timing, the way they time the jokes and the shock value, the way they time
maximum
it is,
impact.
Yeah, it really lands.
It lands every time, and it's like
They're pretty masterful
I
at
was
the shock value.
scandalized, which is so weird because even at the time when I was watching it before, I was like, come on, it's just art. And I was never one of those people that was like, violence in video games is causing people to go bad. But as we've talked about before, I'm like getting more squeamish as I get older. I'm like, ew, raw meat. I don't want to touch raw meat anymore. I'm trying to get over that one. But even just like watching like violent stuff or like horror movies, I'm like, I don't want to see it. And I just was like never like that earlier. And I don't know if that's like a function of my brain calcifying as I grow old.
I mean, I think part of it too is like, well, for me, I don't know if I was scandalized in the same way you were. There was like things that like caught me off guard, and they do feel like fresh and shocking still, which is crazy. But I think some of it is, I think through a contemporary lens, some of the jokes feel even more taboo than they did back then. Yeah,
it's like, ever since, I don't know, what was it? 2020, like the reckoning of the world, the pandemic's happening, George Floyd gets killed, and there's like an uproar in the world, and there's a real clenching, and everybody's in fight or flight all the time, and it really kind of like changed how media was supposed to treat certain subjects, and it got very there was just so many tripwires, it seemed like, got laid out, or that there were like, landmines that seemed to be around in an effort to kind of like insulate everybody who was like panicking, and it has just like permeated all of society. It's so weird because now it's like even me, I'm like very resistant to that whole idea, the milieu of like concepts of censorship and things like that. I'm like very anti. I'm like as close as you can get to like a free speech absolutist without actually being an absolutist. Because of course I know there are limits and exceptions. We know that, but there's like very few that I'm always skeptical of that, and still it's like in my brain where I'm like, I don't know if we should be joking about this. This makes me so uncomfortable. Oh my goodness! I mean, even what is everybody else thinking?
Even being for free speech doesn't mean you're for that you are comfortable with all speech.
Right.
Those are not the same.
Well, and like decorum is like, also like a thing in my mind and an important part of...
Social constructs are also important sometimes.
Exactly, right. And so it was interesting just because I think they're more important to me now than they've ever been. And that's...
Funny.
Yeah, it's changing as I age. It'd be interesting talking to like younger me about this, but...
Right.
Yeah.
But it's interesting the way the show uses these kind of radical and shocking jokes and ideas, and it feels scandal. It makes you question. It makes you say, like you said, should we be talking about that? Should we joke about that? Yeah. It really makes you ask those questions. And I think what they do really well for me is they are not taking the position of the jokes most of the time.
Right.
They are using the jokes to like get us closer to either how ridiculous a subject is, or
because it's important to actually talk about these things, because that's, as we've talked about before, maybe on the show, maybe just in private, but just that humor is used as a method of interacting with difficult topics, right? And we do that in life. I make you angry, you'll make a joke at me because you're really kind of like diffusing the anger that you're truly feeling, but because we have to like interact as human beings and spouses, you can't just be like punching me in the face. You make a joke.
Yeah, in real life we do it.
In real life we do it, and that's how we can interact with these like really hard ideas, like an entire village in Uganda that's under a warlord's reign, and they all have AIDS. It's like, how do we even talk about something like that without just like falling into despair?
Right.
You make it a joke. You make it so ridiculous and funny, and then give it a little heart. And now you can interact with the information in like kind of a safe environment for your mind. So you don't have to just like sit there being sad.
Right. Well, and it allows us to look at it in a way that we're not feeling sorry for the people necessarily.
Right.
It's not, it doesn't become like oh, this is tragic, so this is inspiration porn.
Right. That's how you desensitize people, in fact, right? It's like,
Sure.
It's like even, I just keep thinking of Passion of the Christ.
What about it?
Another religious movie. No.
Oh my God.
No, because it's so serious.
Yes.
And it's so violent. And at the eventually it's like, I remember just being like, oh my God, it's too much already. I'm done. I don't even want to do this anymore. I'm not inspired. I'm not, there's no revelation here. I'm just tired.
Sure.
And not to say that we necessarily need to make it a joke, although maybe it could do, a story could do with a joke or two.
Sure.
But it's,
Sure,
you know.
but if we're talking about keeping it accessible to somebody who's sitting there and watching a story.
That doesn't already believe it, doesn't already agree.
Yeah. And there's an element, I'm sure, of Passion of the Christ that is, we want to feel the full badness of it.
Sure.
Like that
was the point, right?
There's the act of contrition that we're supposed to be feeling.
Yes.
So it's not supposed to be
Calvary.
pleasant. It is done purposefully, but not pleasantly.
Right. Other first impressions of the show?
It's fun. I mean, as a musical theater piece, I was on the edge of my seat and I was having a great time. Like as far as just like a well done piece of musical theater, they killed it. I mean, the actors were great. The dancing was great. The singing was great. Everything was across the board so well done, so sharp, so meticulously put together that it's hard not to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's like, it is a classic musical theater structure. It is like, in every sense of the word, a musical. It is not really breaking any structural tropes, and it kind of soars because of that. It is
absolutely,
it's incredible, and it's like a real testament.
Yeah,
to that form,
to the art form, classical musical theater.
Yeah.
We're talking, 30s, 40s, 50s musicals that people are like, I don't like them because people sing out of nowhere. And I don't know why they're doing that and all of those things. And they turn around and in the same breath are like, but I'd still go see Book of Mormon. I'm like, literally all of those things that you're experiencing, that you're describing,
that you're criticizing about all these other classical musicals. That's what makes
Book of Mormon
so good.
So good.
That they burst out into song. Colton. So what you had experienced some amateur musical, perhaps.
Yeah.
What was your impression of musicals generally before, the show, before going to see Book of Mormon? Was there any reason why you didn't go see them? It just
I mean, to be honest, my dad, we had cousins who were like super into drama and musicals. And when I was a teenager, my dad would take me and my brother because we had to go support them and see them. And taking a teenager on a Friday night, an hour away to watch their cousins in a musical that wasn't super entertaining, just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
Sure.
I mean, that's the real reason. But yeah, it was just never something I thought I could be into.
Yeah.
And then after seeing Book of Mormon, I was like, I would go see another musical, even if it wasn't like a funny one or like something
interesting.
like that.
It's a gateway musical.
It's a gateway musical. You beware. You're going to do more musicals. Yeah.
But I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's funny because personally, I have mixed feelings about that. That a part of me is like, absolutely, Book of Mormon, it's excellent, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm happy that lots of people are getting into it and it's popular. On the flip side of it, there are plenty of people I know who will go to see it or will have seen it and they're like, yeah, but that's the only musical I like.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, but I have also heard people like Colton say, you know what, that was good, and I think it can be good.
Yeah, because I could change my mind about it. What do you think generally of like the I guess, how familiar are you with like the idea of like bursting out into song and dance?
Not familiar with it at all. Like, I don't know.
You don't do it in your
You don't do it in your life?
No, I can't say I do.
I mean, does it feel to you when you're watching it? I mean, I have been interacting with musicals my entire life, practically.
Yes,
and
same.
I mean, who hasn't if they've been, grown up in like the
Plenty
Disney
of people.
era, right?
Well, that's true.
That's like part of it. Disney's like a little bit of also tangential, right? They're all musicals basically, but we're also watching a cartoon, and we almost expect cartoons to have music in them in a way that like watching people on stage. Have you had experience with other drama, like anything on stage?
I mean, not at a professional level that I can think of.
Just like a Shakespeare play or
no, nothing like that.
Okay.
All of it was just like high school students or middle school type stuff.
Yeah. So what did it feel like seeing that when you like go into the show and you're like, they suddenly just start singing? That's like the first thing that happens is ding dong. Hello.
Well, that was my favorite song that was in it. That's
The first
stuck
one
in my head.
It's
for
so good.
3 weeks
It's like
since I've
it's
seen it.
the whole.
I mean, it's
yeah.
we'll talk about that because I think you're onto something there for sure.
But I was just like, it starts with music, and I was like, is everything going to be music? I mean, is there any are they going to talk like normally in this, or like
Right.
is everything just going to be through music? Obviously, I found out that they do just have normal conversations and stuff, but when they just started with the music, it was just kind of like, boom, like here I am, like
You're in it.
I am in it. I'm fully immersed.
Yeah. Interesting. That first song, just speaking of things that work, that first song is
that
one
first
of the
number,
best
opening
numbers in
of
musical
any
theater
musical.
canon. Like, it is extraordinary.
I mean, I think it's telling that you felt so immersed so quickly.
Yeah.
And I can understand why. I mean, it is like, it dives right in. It is so clear.
It's clear. It's simple. It's simply staged. It's interesting to watch. The kind of the canon of the music with like the layering of the
overlapping.
voices
Yeah.
is so fun and silly.
It got me excited. I've listened to it 100 million times.
Yeah.
The Tony performance was exciting.
Yeah.
Like, it is such an exciting number, and they talk right in the middle of it. They have it's like there's little scenelets in that song, and it introduces you to the characters. It gets the world started. It does everything right, and it does it in a way that is like very upbeat and very exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Did it take you any time, Colton, to like get used to going back and forth between music and libretto text?
Not really, because I didn't really think about it before seeing the musical, but like we went home that night and like put on whatever show, like it was some cartoon. And I was like, they sing in every episode of this show, and I've just never really thought about it because it was either like South Park or Family Guy or something.
Family Guy, they do.
Family Guy
it's
does.
like
every single one.
Seth MacFarlane is like a huge music person. He has a
Musical
ton
theater,
of he has a ton of like albums
crooner.
Family Guy, American Dad, they're just like chock full of music.
South Park also has a ton of music.
And South Park, it's interesting.
I don't think I realized it at the time, but like I can understand now, like, oh, it didn't really faze me because I watch all of these shows where music is like very prominent in it, and in my head it's just like, oh, they're just doing music now.
Yeah.
makes
Wow.
I guess I didn't. I it's funny they say I wouldn't have even remembered that. I obviously like shows that have lots of music. Like Bob's Burgers does it.
Sure.
A lot of shows now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Central Park, but that is kind of advertised as that.
Right. Central Park is a musical, it's
I
got
don't know
like
why
4
that
songs
feels
per.
different.
It does feel different. I don't know why
But
either.
why does Central Park feel different than Bob's Burgers? I'm not sure.
Well, Bob's Burgers usually has like one.
Maybe.
an
And some they
episode.
don't. So that's
Right.
that's part of it. And Central Park is music heavy. But I think it's It is. It's kind of all around us, and music is used in all storytelling, especially TV, film. Music is in every.
I mean, the music's gonna like make it. If you try to watch a movie without the soundtrack, and
how do you even do that?
I'm not even sure, but I bet you it's not very good.
Yeah,
it'll be very weird.
Or change it. It's fun to watch like those fake previews on YouTube where they're like, oh, Mary Poppins is a horror film,
right?
Where all you have to do is put some spooky chords over images of Mary Poppins, and you're like, yeah, that's scary. I'm a little spooked out.
Yeah,
because music gets you
in the mood. Tells you
tells
you what's going on. Yeah, a little bit. Gives you a little undercurrent of emotion.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Even TikToks. They use music.
Yes. I mean, it's like permeated.
Yes.
TikTok and Reels. It's all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. What else works?
So much.
I know. So much works. I like the structure of the show, and we move from these kind of, these really like peppy. They really did a good job mimicking musical theater songs.
You mean making musical theater songs?
I'm saying mimicking. Like when you hear the songs in the show, they actually are emulating a specific song from another show.
Very a la Schmigadoon. Schmigadoon
does
a little
the
bit.
Same. Schmigadoon is something really similar. I think Schmigadoon is a little less earnest in their music. But they're doing something similar, sure.
Yeah. But that where they're essentially taking a song that people know in the musical theater canon and kind of recreating it for the purpose of this show.
Yeah, so we've got like Mostly Me is somewhere between The Wizard and I and Defying Gravity from Wicked. It feels. I mean, it's like it just
very
is that
Wicked. Yes. I mean, the Lion King. There are very clear references to Lion King.
Yeah. The Hakuna Matata is Hasadiga Ibawai is just Hakuna Matata.
So funny.
It's so silly. Oh my god.
I mean, that one's really obvious. I mean, they talk about Lion King. They
They literally bring it up.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City is somewhere that's green.
Yes. Oh, yes.
From Little Shop of Horrors. And it's like has a similar vibe where it's like you're watching this person totally earnestly talking about her dream, which we know that's not that much of a dream. In Little Shop of Horrors, she's singing about how like her dream is to have like this cookie cutter house and have like
a plastic lawn.
Yeah. And have like, microwavable dinners in front of the TV with kids and, have plastic over the furniture. And we're like, okay, doesn't sound that extravagant.
That's that suburban life that we kind of laugh at. And it's like
her dream. And it's so genuine. She doesn't realize how much of a joke she's telling.
Yeah.
Because she's dead serious. In this Salt Lake City, she's talking about how Salt Lake City is like there's the impression of what Salt Lake City this paradise, and that there's
the paradise there's
a red cross on every corner, and I think that's so funny. It's like that's what paradise looks like. It's like that is not at all what that is.
What our view of paradise is.
Sure, that's not our view of paradise. It's also not what Salt Lake City is.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City is a fine city. They would actually be in a very different place.
I mean,
the world,
I'm sure would think
if they got there, right?
But it's like there's more than you're dreaming for. It's that kind of like you are only dreaming this far.
You can't even fathom.
Even know.
You don't even know what you don't know.
And there's like a tragedy in that.
Yeah.
And a comedy tragedy. Like there's both. There's that.
Yeah.
There's that tension between the two.
Yeah. And one more thing that worked, that in the end, the story ends up just being a mirror of the story of Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church.
Yeah.
So it's like Arnold ends up being Joseph, where it's like
Yeah.
you have this group of people that need a leader of some kind, perhaps. Or at the very least, it is like this. It's like the steel man for what is good about the Mormon religion, right? That perhaps Joseph Smith was providing a needed service for these people, and so was we in hindsight are looking at it, or maybe as non-Mormons we see and we're like, oh my God, what a crazy religion!
Right.
It's so silly, but in the end, it's like, well, if it's helping people, isn't that kind of okay? What if it's fulfilling this purpose?
Premise where they set up pretty early that the things that the Mormon Church believes in are kind of silly or kind of ridiculous, and they make fun of them. They make fun of like some of the things that are pretty extreme. Yeah. And they poke fun at it, and so the whole audience can laugh and be like, "That is pretty silly." We're finding those things in Mormonism that we're like, "That's so silly." And of course, to mirror that,
they're like changing the script a little bit, and Elder Cunningham, Arnold is like lying about stuff because he's just like making things up because he never read it.
His own version of these like completely ridiculous things
in order to help the people who are there,
to get them engaged with the stories, so that he could get them to kind of band together.
Right.
And they found this like power in themselves and power in this group and in the religion itself. And I think the way that they kind of wrap it up at the end, not even wrap it up, but they like take us through this whole journey of watching these Ugandans learn about all these fake things that what's his name?
Arnold. Yeah.
All the things that Arnold's making up, they're eating it up, and they're so excited about it. They do this whole play within a play.
Oh yes.
Which is just
oh my gosh,
Tupton's play from King and I.
Yes, the King and I.
Again,
the Little House of Uncle Thomas.
Small House
of Uncle Thomas.
Oh,
yeah, I mean it's
also,
just
again,
a
a
redo of
brilliant
that
moment in musical theater that they like. Honestly, I think that play is so good in Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
I think they do it so well. It's perfect. I think it's brilliant. They put on this show where they're telling their version of the story, or Arnold's version of the story, and of course scandalizing the Mormon officials that have come to
the president of the missions or whatever he is,
because they've gotten all of this attention for converting the most people in Africa that anyone has ever converted.
Yeah.
And we're watching them and being like, oh my gosh, he's like totally just screwing these people over. He's feeding them all these lies that make them look ridiculous. And it's just going to like,
oh my God, they're so gullible and stupid, and they just ate it all up. And then they just flip it. They flip it where they're like, what are you talking about? Salt Lake City's not a real place. It's a metaphor, which is also a hilarious joke.
It's so funny. That they're like, of course we don't believe in this ridiculous things. This is metaphors for things.
Right.
And it just like that one surprised me. I forgot that
happened.
And that in that, like they actually find some like peace and happiness in this new version of Mormonism. And even the main character who like gets disillusioned with Mormonism and is like, I'm running away to Orlando because he sees someone get shot in the face.
Right. Well, to be fair, that is
sense.
traumatic.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So he tries to leave, but then he comes back because he's a scary, spooky Mormon dream. And he's like, I don't believe in it anymore. And then in the end, after all of that, he sees the benefit. He sees the good that it's doing for the people.
Yeah.
And so he's back in, and that's how it ends.
That's how it ends. It's really interesting. And then it makes us, as like everybody in the audience, Mormons or not, be like,
we thought the point of view was this was ridiculous.
We thought we were just like making fun of it, but turns out maybe it's okay.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
it's
They did a
fun.
really
I
great
liked
job,
it.
that kind of making fun of out of love.
Yes. I think there is a lot of reverence to the way they make fun of the Mormon Church. I know back in the day, I don't know if I meant to check the program, but back in the day, the Mormon Church put advertisements in the programs.
Yeah.
Because they
were like, cool.
The show was funny.
Yeah.
They liked it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the same position they hold today. I assume it is.
Sure. Yeah.
But they saw it and were like, yeah, we see. We can make fun of ourselves. We have a sense of humor, and you're not really bad-mouthing us.
Right.
Not really.
There's stuff in the book that's weird and silly, like any religion.
Everyone does ridiculous things. Everyone is, their own. Mormon people are these happy, shiny people. But everyone has their own way of being, and everyone from the outside will look at it and think it's ridiculous, and that's okay.
Sure.
If you can look at it, and I always say, if you can't have humor about yourself, you're always gonna.
Yeah.
You're never gonna make friends.
No.
You have to be able to make fun of yourself.
Yes. What didn't work? Let's start with Colton. Was there anything that didn't work for you?
I don't know if I have enough experience with musicals to say if something worked or didn't work.
Well, for you.
Was there anything you didn't enjoy?
They were just like, I'm bored here.
I mean, honestly, no. I was entertained the whole time. I was laughing every single song, and it's like every sentence every person said made me laugh.
So just the fact that there was an intermission.
Yeah, there was an intermission.
There had to be a break.
And I feel like the intermission was a little too long. I was ready to get back to it. But that's really
that's high praise.
Yeah, truly.
I mean, you guys might say something, and I'll be like, oh yeah, now that I think of it, that didn't work. But off the top of my head, and even after thinking about it for a few weeks, I've had time to soak it in. I can't think of anything that didn't really work that well.
Yeah. I mean, it was really good. It was well done. The performances are excellent.
Yeah. And I think it's really talent. It makes sense. It is clearly designed to be kind of like a fun ride, and I think it does that very well.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, being musical theater people, and I still have a little chip on my shoulder about non-musical theater people say it's good,
but they don't even know why it's good.
Don't like other musicals
because when they wouldn't like other musicals, and people are like, oh my god, it's so good because it's so funny. But it's like what we just talked about, where it's like this. Who is making that case, right? There's so few people go see that they're realizing what actually makes it so great. That it's actually really interesting and making a really poignant observation about not just Mormonism, but all religions and faith, and finding it and kind of how stories can help us make meaning in life.
It actually has a very strong point of view and tells the story in a very clear story arc.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is classic story structure.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to deviate from that to be effective. In fact, it's effective because of that. It's kind of the point.
But this is the part of the show where we're supposed to say things that
plenty.
are wrong with it.
Not wrong, but
not wrong. Some things that didn't really work for me or you. One thing I don't love Man Up as a song.
Just as a song.
I just don't like that song.
Sure, yeah.
And it's like when Elder Cunningham, Elder Price has just left, and Elder Cunningham has been kind of tapped by the village to, it's like Elder Price is gone, but you can do it. You're a Mormon. Why don't you do it? You can still baptize. And he's like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I guess I can. Well, what did Jesus do when he was on the cross? Did he just whine and go away? No, he manned up, and he's sings this weird kind of masculinity song, and it's got the one joke that it's this weird kind of awkward nebbishy kid who's singing about kind of manning up
right.
for this religious thing, and as like the stereotype of Mormons being a little bit, genteel or maybe even effeminate or just not very masculine and manly and tough people, and he's like singing about being tough, but that was never the problem, right? That was like never really the thing that he needed, and I realize,
of course, that's
not necessarily disqualifying as.
I think
because
structurally
stories,
it works.
Yeah, because it's
fine.
like people think they need a thing and they really need something else.
Of course.
Because that's very classic in stories,
again.
right? It's like I thought I needed this thing, and turns out I had it all along. I don't like the song, and I don't think it's that funny.
Yeah, it has that,
and it seems out of nowhere.
The single joke thing.
Yeah,
and that's a very, very like picky note that I have about plenty of musical theater songs.
Sure.
But yes, I generally, it's not my favorite song in the whole show. I think another song that is kind of that single joke is Baptize Me.
Yes, Baptize Me is the same thing. Or it's just kind of the one joke where they're singing to each other. He's going to baptize her, but it like kind of sounds like they're talking about taking each other's virginity.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just one joke again and again. And I get the joke.
It's like almost not scandalous enough.
Yeah, almost like
standing up against the rest of the show.
Yeah, it's a little like milquetoast, and
it's not.
We also already know that they're going to do it. They don't even have something like, not that a song, we've talked about this too, but not that a song necessarily needs to be action. It doesn't need to move the story forward. But if it's not going to be a joke and it's not really going to tell us anything new, why are we even doing it? Because we already know that he's excited about it. We know that they're going to do it. We know that she's weird and nervous about it.
I mean,
and then we have to
listen.
They've
never gotten a baptism in Uganda before.
Yes.
So it is a big moment, and it's like weird. Like, we forget that it actually is kind of a big moment because of the joke.
Right.
It's almost like making it makes sense to parallel it to losing virginity in terms of something that is that big of a deal.
Sure.
But I think the joke pulls us away from, not that they care. That's the other thing.
But the earnestness of the moment. And I think that's probably my biggest criticism, is that there weren't enough real moments in this production.
That is certainly my biggest.
There is. I did like criticism. Elder Price generally kind of did it differently than I'd ever seen it. And there's something like grounded about what he was doing. He was like a reality to him that I thought was interesting, and not out of character, not like outside of the world of the show, but it just was like, oh, he's like actually having these real responses, not just like a cartoon character.
It was refreshing,
and that was
because
nice.
I have seen it
done like very broad, and it's like
happy.
He's the straight man, and Cunningham is the clown,
right.
But
in that, I would say my biggest, the show's hilarious. Like Colton was saying, like every line is funny.
Yeah.
Everything is hilarious.
Yes.
That I was looking for moments of
relief
especially in Salt Lake City.
Yes.
Because of that, like I am a big Ellen Green Little Shop fan.
Yes.
But somewhere that's green, that moment of like, that really sincere, I really want this. I really, like, this is something that I want to see her dreams, and like the way, I don't remember how it was played when I saw it, a decade ago.
I remember it being a little bit more sincere than that. Like,
I
really.
think so. And maybe it tried to be and just like didn't work out for me that night. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
There was something that like people were laughing on about every line.
Yes.
Which I don't think needs to happen. Like it was played to get
played
the
for
laughs.
the joke, as opposed to letting the jokes be, because that's how, say, somewhere that screen goes. It's like, it's this really pretty song, and she's obviously very earnest, but when you listen to the words, you're like, oh, that's silly.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it should be like. It should be.
It makes it gives it that tension between like, oh, that's like kind of a funny thing we want to laugh at, but like,
But like she really
that makes me
feels
feel
it.
bad that I want to laugh at that.
Right.
And there was something missing, at least about the way it was played this time, that I didn't.
We didn't get
Like
the
I
wholesomeness
felt like
of
it
the
was
moment.
like it was a joke.
Yeah.
The song was a joke.
Yeah.
I don't know. And
Yeah.
I've heard in the past people be like, "Oh, that's a boring song," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you need in the context. I think you do need. I need relief.
I
from
need a
that
relief from
comedy.
the joke because it's
Even if the song is funny, even if there's something comedic about what it is, I
want heart.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe is a general criticism. I mean, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this probably, but general criticism of South Park that I have had and why I don't like it as much as, say, The Simpsons or even Family Guy or American Dad, but mostly kind of the Matt Groening stuff is like really, it's all heart. It's really just like all heart. And Bob's Burgers, same thing. It's like all love and heart, and they're ridiculous and they're mean to each other or they screw up, but they love each other so much and you can see it. And you need the heart as well as the humor. And South Park, again, like you said, they don't give a shit about it. That's like that's the brand, right?
That's the brand.
And that's not to say that there is
It's a style.
none. Again, I haven't seen that much South Park. I've seen quite a bit,
I'm
but
sure
I mean,
there's some, sure.
it's been going on for 20 years. You know, it's like at this point, there's so much to watch that I'm sure that I'm missing some nuance there. I'm not claiming to be an expert, but I think in the past, when I've watched South Park, I've been underwhelmed because there isn't a relief.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why I never got into it either.
Yeah.
Another thing about the show, circling again back to this whole idea that it is like a classical musical theater structure, because it is so classical, I think it does fall in the pitfalls that classical musical theater falls into, where a moment like Baptize Me is Baptize You? Baptize You. They say both of them say.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called.
Baptize Me, I think.
Baptize Me?
Yeah.
It moves the story along. A Spooky Mormon Hell specifically, for me, I think it feels, I don't know. It was never my favorite. I don't feel like it.
Wow, I like Spooky Mormon Hell Dream. I think
I
it's
know
funny.
A lot of people do. It's not,
I like
it's not the most popular opinion, but it comes like right after. I mean, there's one song before it, but it's one of the first in Act 2.
Yeah,
and I think it's supposed to be the silly beginning of Act 2. This is just kind of like
it's like a main a holdover from the time when they would start the show and people weren't really in their seats yet, so they made sure to have something that was a little bit fluffy. It was like Shapoopy from Music Man. It's like it's a nothing song. Nothing happens in that song. It's not important, and it's like a million years long. Because it's very exciting, it gets people back in the show, but they're also expecting people not to quite be ready yet to see. They're still chatting, they're still getting their drinks, they're coming. It was a much more social event.
Yeah.
So they get to come back and sit down and not miss anything.
And while Spooky Mormon Hell Dream, it does move the story along. He has a bad dream, which makes him go back. I get it. It is a plot point. It just is like, it's very long for me. It's not. It doesn't feel funny enough or serious enough to be that long personally. And that is, again, it might just be a personal preference, but I do feel like moments like that where they're like, oh, this works well in the structure of the show. And it does. It moves. The way the show moves, I think, is great. You're sitting and watching, even I'm sitting there enjoying the whole show.
Yeah.
It's just those moments for me, if I'm not quite snapping in, it just gives me a second to sit back and be like, is this really working? It's fun, but...
Yeah, it's your bend and snap.
Oh, yeah. I love bend and snap.
No.
Because that doesn't take me out.
Takes me out. Takes me out of Legally Blonde, the bend and snap. No. Great. Let's move on to some superlatives, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Do you have an Oscar moment?
Do I have an Oscar moment? I think Hasadika Ibowai gets best song.
Okay.
I think that song is so brilliant. I think the joke is really funny. I think it's really clever how they get the Mormon boys to say this phrase that means "fuck you, God" so many times before they even know what it means. And I think it is so funny. And
I mean, it's like
and the
bombshell
build
after bombshell, like,
and the build is great because it's like starts as kind of like a Hakuna Matata type of thing, and then it just gets
really
worse
trick
and
you.
worse
It's really
and
good.
worse and worse.
It's so funny.
It's like
That song
how
is
does this
so
get worse?
Freaking funny! Oh my
it's
god,
really good, and I think that gets best song for me.
okay, I like it. I think I'd have to give it to the tap number.
Oh yeah, turn it off.
It's just so stupid and so musical theater. They just have like a tap break in the middle of a song it's off of a miscommunication.
Yeah,
That he's like, oh, he must also be having gay thoughts like me. That's the whole
right. Because there's the gay
whole
Mormon.
concept is
that's
we turn
part
off
of
we turn off our feelings. But they're, the whole song is about turning off your feelings like a light switch. Very silly, very fun. The jokes are great, but the dance number
it's
is
good.
so
it's so
good.
fun.
And I was very specific this time because last time I saw it, they started tapping and I was like, that has to be recorded because they're not wearing tap shoes. They were walking around the whole
Oh my goodness.
Scene. So this
he turns
time,
to me and he's like,
I'm
are they wearing tap
let's
shoes?
look, are they wearing tap shoes?
And they sure
very
were.
Clearly are
I'm
wearing
not
tap
even
shoes.
sure how they were doing it because they were making no noise for a full scene of like 8 Mormon boys in tap shoes on the stage and not
Walking
a
around,
single tap.
So
Crazy.
well done. The you have to walk very, very carefully.
It is not
for that
easy.
tap. And so maybe, just that trick alone
Yeah.
deserves an Oscar.
Sure.
But also, like, in the middle of it, they clap on and clap off the
Oh
lights.
my God.
Because
it's so brilliant.
because they're talking about turning on and off lights. But the only dance break that could work with the lights off is a tap break. And it's just like so many silly, stupid things that just all work together.
Oh my gosh.
And then the second time they turn off the lights and turn it back on, they have a costume change. They're all wearing pink sparkly vests. Which is
For
so
no
stupid.
reason.
It means nothing.
It means nothing.
But Elder Price also has joined the number in that costume change. So just like he's been...
It's so funny.
It just works. They take these tropes and these things that people are like, those are ridiculous, those are crazy. And it shows people that can work.
Yeah.
It can help tell the story.
Yeah.
Even with a stupid song, even with a stupid dance that doesn't connect. Like, there's no reason why Mormons should know how to tap dance. There's no reason why they should have like a box full of sparkly vests. All of this makes no sense.
Oh my God.
But
all
does it
for
help
the
tell
joke.
the story? Yes.
All for the joke
is
to
it
have
hilarious?
him tap
Absolutely.
away. That McKinley taps away at the end of that scene. He just falap.
So stupid.
It's so stupid.
I love it. Brilliant.
Oh my God, it's so dumb. Colton, do you have an Oscar moment for the show?
I'm going to kind of steal what Colin said.
Yeah.
The only part of the show that took me out of it was when they made that costume change from wearing whatever they were wearing to the pink sparkly vest.
Okay.
That happened and I turned to my girlfriend. I was like, how did they do that? Like the lights were out for like 4 seconds. I'm like,
It was really
how is that even
magic.
possible?
Stage magic.
Stage magic.
I was very impressed by that, and that is stuck in my head. I'm like, I still don't know how they did that.
And theoretically, while they're tap dancing the whole time.
Right.
Yes. Crazy. I don't know how that happens.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Their vests, they could have them on their person somewhere,
Yeah.
but like, who knows?
I don't know.
Do it that quickly and
I know.
Brilliant.
Ugh, so good. All right. Unearned moment.
Okay. I'll go.
Yeah.
Because I think that the moment that Salt Lake City was not sincere or not completely insincere, but because it didn't really get to a a really grounded place where I like really, really like believed in her and kind of like felt for her.
Yeah.
There was a moment at the end where she comes in to check like how their play did, and she's like, oh, how did it go? And they're like, oh, we have to leave because that was
they're really mad at us, and
they're mad.
Yeah.
The head of
It was all lies.
the mission
I lied. Yeah.
is like really mad and like, you guys don't know anything. And,
Yeah.
and she is so distraught that they're not going to Salt Lake City. She thought they were taking all of them to Salt Lake
Right.
City, and gets like, is really upset and like has this moment where she's like, you lied. This was my dream. I can't believe you tricked me. And there's something that was played very sincerely and very well. And I just think because it wasn't set up in a way that like she had this like real serious and grounded moment before, I just think it misses something.
Yeah.
We're lacking something in that later moment. And I'm like, okay, but like you played it like you're like this silly, goofy, like, oh, my head's in the clouds, and like there's not like I don't know if I believe that this is as
Yeah.
as
That makes
serious as deep as it's feeling right now.
Right. Because if you don't have that
Doesn't-
first genuine moment, then you don't have the tragedy. Doesn't mean as much.
Right. I think it's written in. I just think the way it was played this time, it just like it did not feel like it was earned in the end.
Yeah.
That was my
Interesting.
moment.
Great.
What about yours?
I don't like the maggots in my scrotum joke. It happens 3 times, and I don't love it. I think
it
it's
three? Three
It's
times?
3 times. One time he just tells him that he's like, "Oh, I'm the doctor. I have maggots in my scrotum." And they're like, "Oh my God, I can't help you for that." That's a very funny moment in that first time because
I
he's
love
like
that first moment's
because that
excellent.
first one's funny because Elder Price is like trying to convince them to convert, and he's like, "I got real problems. I have maggots in my scrotum. Does Mormonism help with that?" And that's like a really, it's extreme, but it makes
was
sense
really
there.
sincere
It's
because
just-
Elder Price was like, does anyone have like weird
Right.
feelings at night? And he's like, oh,
I
do.
do. Yeah, they're
It's like, oh,
inside.
do you ever feel like something's wrong? Something's wrong. He's like,
He's like,
yes,
you're missing-
yes.
yes, yeah.
Oh, does it feel like this? He's like, no,
No, I
I
have-
have maggots in my scrotum.
Can you help with that?
And he's like, very like,
Yeah.
can you help with that?
Right.
And he's
And he's
like
like,
literally
oh,
can't
no.
even
Can't even interact with
that.
it.
It is
Yeah.
so extreme for him that he's just
Right.
walks
It's just
away.
like the maggot scrotum doctor appears 2 other times, and it's the last
Oh,
line
he's
of the
doctor
show.
That's and it's the last line of the whole
And
show.
I just don't think that is deserved. It really upsets me. I really don't like that
They've
joke
not earned it.
at all. I think it is unearned. Are you, Colton? Do you have any unearned moments?
I couldn't really think of any as you guys were going through it, but there was also parts of the show where I think my brain, like I realize now that, at the time I didn't really like that. Kind of like the baptize me part. I thought that was a little, now
yeah.
that you guys brought it up, I'm like, yeah, that was just a one joke thing.
Yeah.
But
We don't mean to ruin the show for you.
No, not at all.
I think it ruins it.
I agree with you though. The maggots in the scrotum thing.
Yeah.
Like the first time it was like, shock
oh,
value.
geez,
Like
right.
that's really raunchy. Like
The second time was for a
Yeah.
rhyme. It was for like a song rhyme.
yeah.
yeah.
I still think it was. I think
And
it
it was-
worked in that
it's
time.
okay.
You didn't like it, but
I don't love
think
it.
it works the second time. I don't like it at the end.
And then at the end, it's like the last thing. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to walk away from the show with?
It's
Oh,
very.
come
I
on.
feel like it's very South Park. They're
It is
Yeah.
very South
Okay,
Park.
guys, remember it's us.
Remember, right.
And like everybody, at least when I was there, like every time he said that line, like the whole place like went wild.
Yeah.
It was like
Did. Yes.
Yes.
It's like
people love it, but
not that funny. Like
not
compared to
that-
the rest of the
yes.
show, like it's
I
not
appreciate.
that
I
So-
appreciate you. saying
yeah, I appreciate you saying that for sure. There's so much in that show that's funny, and that is not the funniest joke.
And I think it is set up funny at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think it is funny at
Yeah.
the beginning. Just
Yeah.
not every time.
No.
Any other?
Any other superlatives? I think the show this production gets an honorary moment for me for musical theater elbows.
I was gonna say
The dance number for 2x2
award
is
for
so
like
exciting.
most musical theater thing that like really works.
Yes. It's like their elbows
those-
were just
I mean,
flying. They were like
Those dance moves are sharp,
the dancers,
and they're
yes. They were like really so much
love
energy.
it.
So exciting to like watch them sing 2x2 and do the whole dance
love
number.
that
And I'm
number
like,
too.
oh my goodness gracious, it's so good,
So good.
so exciting.
Yeah, I would give it to. I love how dumb it is when Arnold is making things up. The song is "You're Making Things Up Again, Arnold," but in that song, his conscience starts showing up as like his favorite characters from
Yes, it's like-
sci-fi
right.
and fantasy. So the hobbits show up.
The
and
Hobbits, a generic Darth Vader or Boba Fett
Boba
shows
Fett, I
up,
think.
and it's like not actually Boba Fett, but it's like a generic Boba Fett. And then there's
a
Uhura from
Yeah,
Star
from
Trek
Star
shows
Trek.
up. It's so funny. That's like his conscience. It's so funny.
Like what a stupid. It's like such a cheesy musical theater trope for like your conscience to come on and be a person that's saying
Yeah.
and like to do it as these like stupid characters. It's just I thought it was delightful. I loved
That
it.
is delightful. Yeah. All in all, very delightful.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I think it is excellent.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, I think it's time to sign off.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for listening in or watching. If you haven't been watching, you missed out because Colin has a nice new haircut. I've got nice new glasses, and I'm wearing a very cute outfit. So find us on YouTube and all the places. There'll be a message after the show telling you where to find us. I think it's time to wrap up. Thanks so much for listening or watching. If you haven't been watching, you're missing out. Colin has a nice new haircut. I've got new glasses and a cute outfit, so you can catch us on the YouTubes on the video if you would like to see our pretty faces. But this is Then a Moment, and I am Pavi Proczko. And remember, musical theater elbows always work.
And I am Colin Funk. And remember, a scrotum full of maggots is only funny one time.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Then a Moment, a Pavitas production project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast is produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriu, and our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Then a Moment Pod, all one word, for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at thenamomentpod@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.